Thank you for checking out this complete broadcast from the Wrestling Epicenter archives. If you like what you hear, please hit the like button and the notifications bell. Also, consider subscribing. It really helps. And now, without any further ado, welcome to the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Interactive Interview. It's James Walsh and Daniel Edler, joined by a special guest, Terry Taylor. Terry, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us. What have you been up to these days?
Well, I have been semi-retired, and I work for TNA,
Right.
and I do some stuff on the weekends, autograph sessions, and occasionally I'll do, wrestling shows.
We had a question down the list, way down the list, about your involvement with TNA. We might as well ask you now. How involved are you in TNA, and what is your official capacity there?
I am you didn't ask me what my job is, but it'll get us to the question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a wrestling producer. Two guys write the show, and we have a meeting, and they tell us the points they try to get across. And as a wrestling person, I try to take those ideas and relay it to the talent in a way that the talent can get the point across by what they do in the ring. And all I do is I'm almost like a reference. I just use my 25 years of experience and suggest stuff. Nobody has to do what I say. I hope they'll listen. And most of them, almost all of them are really good about listening. And, we try to, it's funny, it's just the business is different now. But the same formula applies. So I help produce the wrestling part of it. Take the idea from the writers, relay it to the talent, I get the talent to understand what they need to do in the ring to get the point across.
Is there anybody else that helps you do that, like Shane Douglas, or is that pretty much just your job?
No. Shane is real good at it. Jerry Lynn's real good at it. Captain Moore's real good at it. And what happens is all of us get together, and then I sit in the television truck and tell the director, what's about to happen as far as music cues, dives out of the ring. Because when I did it, 20 years ago, there were two guys that were actually in the ring wrestling.
Right.
There weren't that many run-ins. There weren't explosions. There weren't. It was just much easier to keep up with. There's no tables and all that.
Right.
Business has changed so much now. There's so many more things going on. It's very hard for one person, as the director, to catch all of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we usually go in a chronological order, so we're going to take it way back to the beginning and ask you, way back at the beginning, at the beginning of your career, you actually formed a tag team with Andre the Giant. How did you get along with Andre?
I got along with Andre great. I think Andre and I was lucky. Because I was very respectful to Andre because not only did I respect him, I feared him. And I just made sure that the first thing I did when I went into the locker room was say hello to him. And he'd sit there with his 2 or 3 gallons of wine in the cooler thing, sitting next to him. Hey, boss. Hey, boss. And I just spoke, say hello, say hello back, and we got along okay. We made trips together now and then. He's a good guy, very generous. But I don't remember ever tagging with him unless it was something like a Survivor Series or something.
Well, before we get to the WWF, let's go back to the NWA. There was a takeover of the UWF. Just getting your take on things compared to the way the WWF did it with WCW. How did you think the takeover from the NWA of the UWF was done in comparison to that of the takeover of WCW by the WWE?
I think, and this is not to point the finger or be hateful or say I know something somebody doesn't, but I thought they were both horribly botched. I thought that on the 2 separate instances, I thought if the NWA would have made the UWF talent more credible, they could have gotten a longer run out of the combination if they were trying to combine the 2 companies. But to absolutely have everybody from the NWA crush everybody from the UWF just disgusted the UWF fans.
Right.
I mean, the guys that they cheered for and they followed, were treated in a way that, made people turn WWE bought WCW, you know, nothing against the people they got, because a lot of them are my friends, and a lot of them are hired.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, to take WCW and then face an invasion without Goldberg, without Flair, without the big stars, it's like second, you know, it's going to sound like a slight, but it's not. I mean, it's like sending the second string in, or, you know, to try to win.
Right.
It wasn't both companies' very best, you know, going up against each other like it was on Monday nights for over 3 years.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, speaking of the WWF, you went to the WWF in 1988. How did you enjoy that first stay in the WWF? And I guess I'll go ahead and ask the question right now. And, well, before we get to the other character, which I've heard you're not very fond of, I'll ask you about the first character they gave you of Scary Terry Taylor.
Well, I just did that because of the Halloween thing one time.
Ah.
I nicknamed myself a lot. Actually, I nicknamed a lot of people, but I just, you know, was getting ready to do Halloween, and I did the deal where I just called myself Scary Terry Taylor. It wasn't really a nickname or anything. It was something that was, it was, you know, in the middle of October, maybe going into Halloween Havoc.
Right.
And in the Rooster thing, I'll be happy to talk about that. I mean, I don't have any problem with it. You know, and I'll be honest, too, which is something new and different.
Okay.
When I went to work for the WWF in '88, you know, I had called Pat Patterson Friday afternoon at noon, every Friday at noon for 9 months. He could have set the atomic clock on that call because I wanted so bad to work there. And it's funny how many people say, you know, well, when I was in a position to hire him, they say, well, I called you 6 months ago. You know, well, a lot of things happened in 6 months. I was not going to let Pat Patterson forget me. So, you know, they finally gave me an opportunity, and I was completely unprepared for the political side of it, but I was grateful for the opportunity. You know, that leads into the Rooster thing, doesn't it?
Right, absolutely. Yes, and Daniel, would you like to ask that question?
Yeah. Of course, now you dawned the Red Rooster character. What were your thoughts on it in general?
Okay, to be here we go. No wrestling spin at all. When I was told after 9 years of being, you know, a good guy or babyface that fought and sold and bled and wrestled 25, 30 minutes every single night and wanted people to believe what we did, that was coming from the UWF, to be having, you know, Vince McMahon say, I want you to take the first flight out every morning, spike your hair up, and walk through the airport going, and he wanted me to dye my hair red permanently, and he wanted me to scratch and all that. I didn't get it. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I was sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, you know, my life is going to end. I didn't get it. I thought it was a horrible rib.
Right.
And maybe it was, but as time went on, whether anybody liked the Rooster character or not,
right.
Here's the truth. I have been Terry Taylor, Taylor-made man, Scary Terry, one of those personas for 15 years. I was the Red Rooster for 13 months. 14 years ago, and more people know who the Red Rooster is than know who Terry Taylor is. Was it that bad a gimmick if you go by notoriety and people remembering you? Maybe it wasn't so bad.
Right. Wow. It's an impressive answer. The question I have for you here now is this is going to be a little bit of a tough one. We interviewed Bobby Heenan twice, and both times he managed to get in some sort of dig at you. What do you think the heat is between yourself and Bobby?
I know exactly what it is. I called his house to apologize, but there's no reason in the world Bobby has to accept an apology from me or even take my call. But what happened was, when I went to the WWF in '88, I knew no one. And Bobby Heenan was very good to me. And Bobby took care of me and kind of, you know, steered me away from certain things I was doing that was going to get heat on me. You know, I still did some stuff that, you know, got people mad at me, but I did not understand the overwhelming political landscape of the WWF. I thought if the company was in the office accepted me and gave me an opportunity to hiring me, then the locker room would open its doors to me, and the talent would want me there as much as I wanted to be there. And that's not the case.
Mm.
People have to learn, have to earn respect in the locker room every day.
Mm.
I didn't know that, and I didn't operate in that manner, so I got a lot of heat. Bobby helped me as much as he could. In WCW in 97 and 98, when I was writing the TVs, I was so stressed out. I was so overwhelmed with the work. You know, Eric was undercutting a lot of the stuff we did. The talent could do whatever they wanted. Ultimately, it was the inmates running the asylum, and it was my responsibility to try to, by the position I held, to try to make the show and the company work. And all I did is I said hi brain and bye brain, and that's all I said to anybody. I said hello and goodbye to people because I had a sexual harassment suit filed against me and a girl who tried to be with me that I said no. And I had so many things turned around on me. It was just a bad deal. And Bobby is absolutely, you know, he has no reason. He is justified in how he feels about me because I didn't treat him right. And I never knocked him. I didn't treat him badly. I never said anything behind his back. I just ignored him. And it wasn't that I ignored him. I withdrew. And I tried to call him to apologize when I had figured out what I had done. And he wouldn't take the call. But I have nothing but good things to say about Bobby. He's justified in how he feels about me because what he said I did.
Okay, well, we're going to throw this question to you. You had one feud that comes to mind in the WWF, and that was with the Brooklyn Brawler. How did you enjoy your matches with the Brawler?
He was okay. I mean, he was there on time. He worked hard. Honestly, I mean, and he never hurt me. He was limited in what he wanted to do. You know, but he was fine. I mean, Brooklyn Brawler was a good opponent, and he took care of me physically. And every night when he did show up, I mean, he showed up every night, and when he did, he tried hard. So he was fine. No complaints.
Now, many people say that you were originally considered for the role of Mr. Perfect, but of course that was originally in the end up with Kurt Hennig. So, any idea, was that true or?
I don't know that that's true, but I do know that the day that they debuted Kurt as Mr. Perfect was the exact same day they debuted me as a Red Rooster. So could things have gone in a different direction? Absolutely. Would I have been as good as Kurt Hennig was being Mr. Perfect? I don't know. Kurt did a really good job with that. I mean, I just can't see anybody else being Mr. Perfect because Kurt was so good at it.
Any memories of Kurt?
Huh?
Any memories of Kurt now that he's sadly passed away?
I've got a lot of memories of Kurt. Kurt and I traveled a lot, and when he was, getting his run as Mr. Perfect, he wrestled me for the first 3 months.
Right.
He beat me every night, but I didn't mind. He was so good, and he was, he was a good guy, happy-go-lucky. He was Chief Strongbow. Chief J. Strongbow nicknamed him, and it tells the whole story just by the nickname. He called Kurt Dennis the Menace. Because Kurt was a silly guy who was just always giggly and having a good time and ribbing people in a funny way, and just living life and having a good time. So, I mean, do I have memories? Yeah, I got a lot of memories of Kurt. He was good. He was great to work with in the ring. We split a lot of rooms. We split rooms and stuff. And like it was New Year's Eve one night, and we were in Boston on the top floor of the Hilton at the airport. And he was smoking, and I'm not gonna say anything else, but he was smoking. And I said, "You're smoking so much, you're gonna set the fire alarm off." And I'm trying to go. I'm hammered. I'll be honest with you. I'm drunk. And I'm trying to go to sleep, and he's smoking, and the room stinks, like, Right. And it ends up that we start banging on the door, the fire alarm goes off and all that. He tells me to get a wet towel, stick it under the door. So I do. I look out the people, there's a fireman with an axe out there. But there was a legitimate fire in the building, and I had to run down like 18 or 25 stories of stairs. It's about 20 below zero, in I don't know, shorts and a t-shirt, because that's what I had on when they said get out. And old Kurt was laughing the whole way like it was a rib that he had pulled. He didn't care.
Wow. Why did you decide... Sorry about that. Why did you decide to leave the WWF, or why did you leave the WWF and go back to the NWA?
I was stupid. I had an ego.
Hmm.
When Ted DiBiase went to bat for Vince McMahon to get me a chance up there in 1988,
Right.
Teddy was $1 million man, and I'd worked with him with Watch.
Right.
And, Teddy was the one guy who finally said, you know what, you should give Terry a chance.
Mm-hmm.
And when they did, I went up there, and instead of being grateful and doing what they said, I was given that Rooster character, and I was traveling. I was tired. I was immature and emotional. And I cracked. They wanted me to put Teddy over in San Francisco going into WrestleMania and put the $100 bill in my mouth.
Uh-huh.
And I just told Pat Patterson, the agent, I'm not going to do it. He goes, why not? He goes, this is, wrestling is what it is. Why would you not do it? And he said, Teddy's going to WrestleMania. I said, yeah, Teddy is. I'm not. He's the one who's going to get the big payoff, not me. And he said, but you'll get paid. And, I was selfish. Probably telling more about myself than I should, but
Right.
I was selfish, and I thought I should have been doing better. Not earning it, just thinking I was better than that. So I quit. And Pat was real good about it, asked me to stay. And I thought, about it, wait a minute, Teddy's the one who got you up here, stupid. So I put Teddy over, and I quit. It was pride and ego. I didn't do what was best for the company. I was trying to do I was letting my ego get the best of me. So I did what I thought was better for Terry Taylor. And that's the last thing I should have done.
Right. In the NWA, you joined the York Foundation, managed by Alexander York, who later became Terry Reynolds, or who always was Terry Reynolds. How do you get along with Terry?
Great. I saw her at Ray Traylor's funeral last week. She looks great, and we hugged and caught up a little bit. And she's a sweet lady. I was driving her when she was my manager before she got married. She and I had a ride together because so many guys were trying to get to go out with her. I was married, so she felt safe.
Daniel?
Just while we're on the topic, do you have any thoughts of Big Boss Man Ray Traylor?
Yeah, it's funny. Ray was devastated by Kurt Hennig's death. And I mean, he was devastated. And he was, Ray Traylor, he looked like a big, goofy redneck. And he talked like it, and he was silly like Kurt used to be. But he was worth millions. He had saved his money. He had invested in storage units. He had bought people's mortgages. He was financially in tremendous shape, and he was getting ready to run for city council where he lived. He already owned everything anyway. I mean, I don't know why he had to run for city council. The whole county was his. But, I mean, he wanted to start, giving back and pitching in. He had two daughters that were like 9, and I think the God's divine plan. As a human being, I miss my friend.
And just moving back to the wrestling side of things, how did you enjoy your tailor-made man gimmick?
I liked it. It was just a direct rip-off of $1 Million Man. And I called Ted DiBiase and asked him if I could, wear the same outfit. My wife made it for me, but I just said, do you mind? He's such a good guy. He said, no, go ahead. It'll help you make money do it. And it was fun. I like that character.
You teamed with Greg Valentine and won the tag team championships. How did you enjoy teaming with Greg Valentine?
I liked it a lot. Greg was, I thought Greg and I were a good blend. Because he worked one speed and I worked another speed. So it gave people a contrast. And he's a good guy. He's unselfish, and when he shows up for work and he does his job.
You got those belts to the Freebirds. How did you enjoy your matches with them, and how did you get along with those guys?
Fine.
Okay, we're going to roll into some word associations. Basically, we're going to say a name, and if you have a story, you can feel free and go ahead and share it. And the first name on the list is Tom Zink.
I love Tom because he's so honest, and he doesn't pull punches. He And in a business that's built on deception, it's refreshing to have a guy that's so candid. Tom Zink is okay with me.
Sherry Martel?
One of the sweetest, nicest. She's like almost innocent, except in the wrestling business, hardly anybody's innocent. But she's like this vulnerable little flower until you make her mad. She can beat up a battalion of Marines. She's one of the coolest people I know, and one of the toughest people I know.
How about Hugh Morris? I know it's a name you came up with. At least I heard that.
You don't say it right.
Hugh Morris.
Because Annette, the secretary, decided that she thought, it would be better. She didn't do any of the thinking. She just decided she was going to change it. It's humorous. The laughing man. Humorous, not Hugh Morris. Then it starts making a little more sense. But they didn't let him do the character right. The guy's got the best laugh, and we're going to make him schizophrenic. The two face things that you have, like on acting, it has the frown face, and then on the other side, it's got the mask with the smiling face.
Right.
That was him. He would be laughing 1 minute, and then, murdering somebody the other. Nobody got it. Every time we tried to promote it, somebody came in and messed it up. All right, I'm done complaining. I like him, and he was a talented guy with a good attitude that had a lot of potential, and it was wasted.
Absolutely.
What do you?
He could have done so much more.
What do you think of his announcing? Because obviously, he's I think it's Velocity announcing now for WWE. You've heard it at all?
This is going to sound trite, but I haven't heard him. But I, to be honest with you, I haven't heard anybody on that. I don't watch. And that isn't to be negative or say that I'm making a stand. I just watch CSI instead.
As you said when we tried to call you for the interview a little while ago.
So yeah, same thing I was watching what you guys called. It's on about every 2 minutes now.
Yeah, that and what is it, Law and Order? That's on all the time too, right?
Law and Order I don't know about, but CSI we watch.
Absolutely.
James was explaining what it was to me because obviously we don't get it over here, so.
You will. You guys are a little bit behind us, but no, I'm kidding.
Road Warrior Hawk.
You guys are way ahead of us, but well, no. Where are you? London, Birmingham?
I'm
Manchester?
just south of London. My postcode's a London postcode, but it's not really London.
So you're like Bobby Eaton, kind of like from the South.
So yeah.
Bobby Eaton's got a little accent. I'm kidding.
Yeah. He'd be a good guest to get on. We're gonna have to try to get him someday. I think he'd be fun to get on. How about Road Warrior Hawk?
I love him. Road Warrior Hawk and I always got along, but we were just, kind of like passing.
Right.
I think most guys understood that I wasn't a threat physically because I couldn't beat anybody up. So the tough guys usually didn't, worry about me too much. And Hawk, I really got to know 2 years ago when we both went to the Christian conference where he and I both got saved. And it was weird because he called me every week, and you'd hear this gravelly, raspy voice just saying, I love you, or I just want to call and check on you. And he was a sweetheart of a person. And I believe in God, and I believe everybody, who believes goes to heaven. I know that's where he is, but I miss him. I mean, he was just a good guy.
Absolutely. We already covered Kurt Hennig, but do you have anything you want to add about him?
I wish the people, the one thing about Kurt, I honestly think that if the people got to see the Kurt that was back in the locker room, they'd even been more impressed by who he was. I mean, the character he did on TV was impressive, and his in-ring work was incredible, but he was just, I'm telling you, it's funny, like some guys are just so much funnier or larger than life or whatever the word is in the back, that they don't freeze up when the light comes on. And not that Kurt froze up, he just felt like he had to act a certain way. He's just a good guy. just silly, funny, and always wanting to laugh.
Absolutely. How about another one we lost? I'm sorry to hit you with all these guys we lost in a row, but Miss Elizabeth.
Who?
Miss Elizabeth? Elizabeth.
Yeah, I liked her too. I mean, I thought she was, she was a sweet lady that I think was looking for love. And, I mean, she was beautiful. Never heard her say anything bad about anybody. And, she just was, I don't know, she just seemed all the time like she was, I don't know, nothing bad. Everything about her, I really liked her. And I thought she was a sweet lady.
How about somebody we talked about earlier, Ted DiBiase?
I love Teddy. Teddy's the reason I got into the WWF in 1988, and my way of rewarding him for going to bat and putting his credibility on the line for me a year later was to say no to doing a job. I ended up doing it, but Teddy and I are good friends now, and I really loved the $1 Million Man character. I thought he did a great job with it. In the ring, he was fantastic, and the little skits they did were great. I love to deal with the kids dribbling the basketball.
Right.
You guys remember that?
Oh, I remember everything from back then. I'm such a mark. I used to watch everything. I've watched everything for the past 21 years, 6 times. So
I can tell you what happened 10 years ago, but I can't tell you what happened Monday.
Yeah.
I mean, like when Teddy tells that kid, you dribble that ball 10 times, I'll give you $500. 7, 8, 9, Teddy kicks the ball.
Right. Exactly.
That kid's eyes got all teared up. I mean, they knew how to make people mad.
How did they, and this is going to be a stupid question, but how did they, reward the kid afterwards, or did they really just leave the kid?
$500.
Oh, well, that'll make me smile, too. Yeah.
Yeah, Teddy, I asked Teddy about that. He said, they talked about it that afternoon so the kid wouldn't be, too upset. But the kid, was really into it. And I guess, being on TV and, 15,000 people watching, he started dribbling the ball. And the people were counting with him, and he really got it, he got into it. And it ended up that when Teddy kicked it, the kid's emotion was legitimate. I mean, it was real. And, they ended up giving him the money afterwards, so it worked out.
How about Vince Russo?
Vince is, I love Vince. I know I keep saying I love, but you haven't asked me anybody I don't like.
Well, you said earlier that there's probably nobody that you really don't get along with, so.
Well, there's people that don't like me.
Right.
And I respect that. I don't, if everybody likes me, then I'm probably pretty wishy-washy. But, Vince is a guy who changed, he probably saved the WWF. When he was writing the TVs in 95, 96, and 97, he was changing the landscape as far as the wrestling business. The backstage vignettes, the crash TV. WCW was still winning the ratings war, up into the 98. But when I found out that they were going to, the reason I quit in 99 was I found out Kevin Nash and those guys were lobbying to beat Goldberg. And I went to Eric and I went to everybody that I could and said, if you beat Goldberg, it's like deflowering a virgin. You can never go back. You can never reclaim it. You can never recapture it. I said, you could make him like Bruno used to be, where the only time you see Goldberg is when you see him, doing a PR appearance at a car race or something like that is always videotaped, and then you have to pay, like on 4 or 5 pay-per-views a year, he would wrestle, and that's, where he, you'd get your money out of him.
Right.
When they beat him at Starrcade in 98, I can tell you that is the one, that was the point of a downward spiral where WCW just knows that. Right.
I would have to agree. It seemed like everything after that just wasn't working, and they tried to rehash the NWO, and that didn't seem to work. So you're right.
Well, what happened was that you had a hero, and the hero got killed.
Absolutely. How about Jim Ross?
I've known Jim, I guess, 20 years, and he's I think he's probably the most overworked, hardest working man in the business. I heard he's finally starting to slow down now, and I'm glad. Incredible play-by-play guy.
Mm.
And I think he is an honest and fair man as far as an employer. I just think he's in a real hot spot as far as representing the company and, balancing what's right with what he has to do.
Mm. I got one for you.
I think he has integrity.
I have one for you, and it's funny you just mentioned virgins, because the thing that's going on the internet now is that he's almost got fired for making a remark about virgins the other day, but how about Ric Flair?
I'm a huge Ric Flair fan. I was reading his book,
Mm-hmm.
and he's part of the reason I wanted to get in the business.
Mm-hmm.
In 1973, I was in college in Greensboro, North Carolina, and that's when Rick had come in with the blonde hair and the sunglasses that were round, and he was about probably 275. He's still heavy, and he was a Rip Hawk.
Right.
And every week I watched him work, and he did a new move every week. He didn't, he did the same matches weren't the same every week.
Right.
And his promos were good, and I said, man, this guy's something. And for 4 years, I got to watch Ric Flair wrestle almost every week, live, and I got to watch him on TV.
Right.
So, and he's my friend. I mean, I know him. We hung out together. We shared good times together. And some not so good. I was there when he was, heartbroken by the way he was treated, and when he got sent home by, Eric, because he wanted to go to his son's wrestling tournament. Lots of ups and downs, and I like Rick. I know Rick is a good man. He's I tell you, I admire the fact that he can still do anything in the ring at his age, because he's taken more bumps, wrestled longer, more one-hour Broadways. He's been, think of what this guy's done.
Right.
Over the years, and to still be able to go out there, and he's probably in the top 2 or 3 wrestlers in the WWE right now, and he's 55 years old.
Well, we got 3 more names on the list, and then we'll finally let you go. We know we kept you longer than you expected, but you just mentioned it.
You let me go, but I'm having a good time.
All right, then we'll keep you longer.
Everybody else does.
Oh, that's just mean. How about Eric Bischoff?
Eric?
Yeah.
There was a time when I would have taken off on a 5-minute, cuss fest and just, knocked his integrity and all that. But I don't admire Eric as far as his administrative skills.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think his people skills were good. I think they're probably better now.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the rise of WCW was attributed to Eric Bischoff, and I think the fall was too.
Mm.
I think that just like Rome, the only thing could have beaten Rome was Rome itself.
Right.
To crumble from within.
Right.
And that's what happened with WCW. We gave great guaranteed contracts out. We being ultimately Eric, and the talent started to decide what they would and wouldn't do. And by then, Eric couldn't reel them in anymore.
Right.
Towards the end, actually, he got better. He started being a little more, stern and, disciplined. But by then, the Titanic had already hit the iceberg and the front end had already broken off.
Right. Did you think that when the rumors were that he was going to buy the company, that he was going to be the one in charge? This was actually in January of 2001, and then it seemed like Vince
I
backed
thought I'd
on.
be unemployed. I figured he wouldn't hire me.
Why do you expect that? Did you guys have heat at the time?
Expect me.
Ah.
I mean, I don't think I would be far off base saying that I made Eric look good. I took care of his product in spite of a lot of things that were put up against us, and we still every week plugged along, did what we were supposed to do, made the best out of a lot of bad situations, gave the fans some incredible television, and that's without much backing from upper management.
How about Hulk Hogan?
I respect Hulk, and I will not let somebody knock him in front of me. Hulk Hogan is the only reason, he's the one guy that opened the door for everybody to make big money in this business. He's the first guy, like Nolan Ryan was the first guy to make $1 million in baseball.
Right.
He went from 400,000. He wanted to make 400 or something. And by the time the negotiations were over, it was over $1 million. when he broke that plateau, it opened the door for everybody else. Now look where it is.
Right.
Hulk did the same thing. And if people say, well, Hulk is, selfish and he's this and he's that, I disagree. Hulk wrestled every night for 10 years. He had no home life. He had no personal life. He did morning drive shows on the radio. He went to Arsenio Hall, did that. He did Johnny Carson. He wrestled every night, and then at the intermission, every single night, there'd be a Make-A-Wish kid who was a terminally ill child who had, weeks to live. Mm-hmm. And they all wanted to meet Hulk. And he never turned any one of them away, and he spent a half hour with every one of them. And I don't know what the statistic is, but it's something like 75% of the kids were buried in the T-shirt and the bandana that Hulk had given them a couple weeks before.
Oh, wow.
Now, to say something bad about a guy who did all that, we all benefited from that. Was he selfish on finishes? I don't care. If it wasn't for him showing up every night, not making power plays, I don't know. I just think that we should be grateful for the contribution he made, and accentuate that.
Well, since we're on the topic of Hulk Hogan, I don't know if you were around during this, but the whole situation with TNA, do you know exactly what fell through?
Yeah, Hulk sneezed that. He hurt his knee, and he thought he was going to be able to come back, for his career, my career, all our careers, we hurt ourselves and said, we'll be back in a week. Right. I think he had to get like a partial knee replacement.
Right.
That's part of that deal I was talking about. He worked 10 years, he blew that knee out, and he kept going. People say, he didn't do much, he was limited. He's a guy, a great worker who has people sitting at, every 18 inches and there's 20,000 of them, or a guy that the wrestlers in the back say, man, that was a great match, good move. Everybody's entitled to their own description of what a great worker is.
Absolutely. And the last name I have, though Daniel might have a couple, is Vince McMahon.
I admire Vince. At one time, Vince and I were friends. The last time I went, we were not. And that's really nobody's business but mine and his.
Right. But
he's always been very fair to me. He's given me 4 opportunities to work in his company, which is more than anybody. I'd like to think that I had something to do with that because I do bring something to the table. But he doesn't need Terry Taylor. But he still gave me opportunities, and I respect him and thank him for that. And he's given so many guys that stabbed him in the back or cussed him out or whatever second chances that he didn't have to do. Vince has got a good heart. And, I can't think of anybody that would say that their lives are not better for either knowing Vince or, working for Vince at one time or another. I mean, he makes he gives people a better quality of life, whether by what he pays them or teaching them or something, Vince is one of those people that passes through somebody else's lives and he makes it better.
Absolutely. Daniel, do you have anything you'd like to ask?
I want to, a couple of names I want to throw in, because obviously the internet is ripe with rumours, and with TNA, of course, being one of the big things currently, lots of rumours regarding the Victory Road pay-per-view. And a lot of the websites, like Wade Keller's website and such, are saying that there might be an appearance from Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, and Sean Waltman on the pay-per-view. So, can I get your opinions on those people first and foremost?
Well, you can get my opinion, but to be honest, I don't know if they're going to be there or not.
Okay.
I'm not part of that side of it. They tell me what they want when they get to the TV. I'm not privy to the meetings or the inner workings. I've heard that they've talked to Nash and them, but I've also heard that they don't have anything signed. So if there's no contractual obligation, and there may be, but I heard there isn't. But if there isn't, then are they going to be there or not? Let's find out. I think they'll help. I mean, anytime we can get these guys are stars. They've been to the big dance, and they know what it takes to make a difference. And they can bring that with them. Hopefully, they'll come in and enjoy what they're doing and help contribute.
Absolutely. Well, we can't thank you enough for your time, and if there's ever anything in the future that you want us to promote, autobiography or whatever, please don't hesitate in giving us a call. We'd be more than willing to have you on again and promote you to the best of our ability.
Well, thanks. I appreciate you guys listening to me blather on.
Well, we've been doing these shows for about 2 years now. We started at the small guest, and we worked our way up to guys of your stature. And to be honest with you, every time we do an interview like this, I always sit in my chair for 5 minutes afterwards, just thinking, that is so cool that we just spent an hour interviewing this guy or an hour interviewing that guy. I am a mark at heart, and I think there's a lot of radio shows out there, and sometimes I think the hosts of those shows lose touch with the fact that we ultimately are just fans. And so I just want to thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to give to us.
Well, I'm a fan too. I mean, it's how it all starts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was a huge fan, and that's why I got in it. And I was looking at it, and that's not why I got in it. That was a miracle. But well, it was. I mean, the way I got into business was it was a fluke.
How did that happen?
Well, go to Vince Russo's website. It's not. I mean, if you don't, I've written the whole story on there.
Uh-huh.
It's called VinceRussoForgiven.com.
Uh-huh.
It is a Christian website, but just click onto me. It's real easy. There's a picture of my big fat head there. Click on it. It's about a 2.5-page story about how I got started. And it's interesting. I mean, never had a lesson. No family in the business. There's no way in the world I should ever made it in wrestling, ever.
Right.
So.
Excellent. Well, we can't thank you enough. Let me just, before we hang up, just ask you this one question, since I actually just got a screener's copy of his movie, and I know he's a reborn Christian just as you are. What is your opinions on Sting?
Actually, I hired him when, he came down to work for Bill Watts. And I like the guy. It's funny because him and the Warrior, they weren't roommates. They had separate apartments because Warrior's wife was there.
Right.
They shared Sting's car. And one time, my wife and I are driving down the road in Louisiana, and we just left the gym, and Sting had left with Warrior, and Sherry was Warrior's wife's name.
Uh-huh.
And about 10 minutes later, we're driving down the road almost to our apartment, and then Sting's walking on the side of the road. It's raining. Pull over. What are you doing? He just stomps on. I said, come on, get in. He and Warrior had a fight, and he got out of his own car. Throw them out.
Right. I guess
Sting's a good guy. When he got married, my wife and I furnished his first apartment for him.
Sure.
We didn't have any money.
Yeah.
And it's funny because when I went to the WWF, I think in like 93, was that when the Ultimate Warrior was a big star?
About 90-ish.
But it ended up that he wouldn't talk to me. He hated me. So finally, with me and my no respect for anybody, they thought, I said, Warrior, what's the deal? I mean, why what's the heat? You're an a-hole. I am? What did I do? I haven't said 2 words to you. You broke me and Sting up. What? Well, he wanted to leave Louisiana in 1987, and Sting didn't. And Sting said, what should I do? I said, well, you're the working one of the two. If you want to stay, stay. If he wants to go, let him. Well, Warrior goes, you broke us up. You're an asshole. And I said, well, wait a minute. You're the WWF champion right now.
Right.
Sting's the champion down in WCW. So you two guys are at the height of your career, making more money you ever made because you're not a tag team. Shouldn't you be thanking me? Now you know why you guys hate me.
Well, we can't thank you enough, and once again, just thank you so much for your time.
Okay, guys. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Have a great night. Bye.
And of course, if anybody wants to see Terry and hear more of his stories and such like, you can go to the Wrestling Reunion. I found the website, WrestlingReunion.com is the website URL. Quite, obvious, that one. It's in New Jersey on November 13th, and you can find all the information, including all the stars appearing, including Terry, on WrestlingReunion.com.
Excellent. Stay tuned for more from the interactive interview.
Hello, this is Maria Canales-Bennett, and I am the First Lady of Professional Wrestling, and you're listening to the Wrestling Epicenter.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the interactive interview. We just finished up with Terry Taylor, and now we're back with The man who inspired this show, the man who inspired all the knockoff radio shows that have come along the way, the man that started it all. Welcome, Chris Yandick.
Well, James, thank you so much for the compliment this wonderful, beautiful Monday evening as we're recording this now. It's 1 week away from me turning 19 and my birthday, but that's not what we're here to talk about this evening. But the wonderful interactive interview show, just finishing up a wonderful interview with Terry Taylor. They had Sting last week. You know, they've had Ric Flair. They've had everybody. And the fact is that they continue to raise the bar, and they're doing a wonderful job at it. I spent 4 years in this wrestling industry. I'm now working in the NFL media world. I have for a,
and raising the bar makes it a lot more easy to limbo. But
yeah, I agree, James, and it's easier to do the limbo for the most part, but I just believe right now the wrestling media business isn't what it once was.
Yeah.
I had so much fun going from everybody from Steve Austin to Shawn Michaels, but I'm enjoying interviewing in a more credible media outlet, whether it's more professionalism overall, and I'm just enjoying my time overall doing something new and enjoying the fact of doing something new.
Well, and plus, you just mentioned it, you're doing the NFL these days, and plus that's also is more accepted by the more mainstream media.
Right. National pop culture overall.
Absolutely, and that means that not only will you ultimately get more exposure, but you're probably also going to end up getting more money.
Yeah, well, honestly, for sure. It's just one of those things where I agree to the fact that we all, have to find something that we love. But I have a press release list with people from Sports Illustrated, ESPN, international newspapers who send me back feedback on my stories. And that means more to me right now than World Wrestling Entertainment giving me feedback on our career in wrestling journalism, where I'm probably not going to work for their company. I probably don't want to work for their company. I know a guy who's worked since the 80s before wrestling entertainment and writes all their books, who doesn't even want to be part of the office, doesn't want an office position because he doesn't want to have to deal with the political office BS. So, that's just how it is. And I agree with the fact that the wrestling business isn't what it once was, and because the wrestling business sucks right now, and I did a lot, and I just think there's a lot of immaturity between different wrestling radio programs. Not the interactive interview. I think the interactive interview is the most professional, independent wrestling news medium there is right now on the internet. Of course, you have PWInsider.com, which was OneWrestling.com, which we'll get to in a minute about my whole story there. But I think for the most part, you look at where the wrestling media business is right now, and there's the same 5 guys interviewing on the same 5 radio shows. So
absolutely,
I think right now,
and you made a point. We talked about this off the air quite a lot off the air when we thought we were on the air, actually. And you mentioned that we don't take shots at the other shows because we consider ourselves above it. Well, I kind of have to take a step back and say that I did take a small shot at a radio host that I'm not going to mention, but his name is either exactly the same or sounds almost identical to a male liquid. But you know who we're talking about. He had an incident with Sid Vicious recently. Would you mind laying it out on the line?
Well, for the most part, I can say that about that voice of wrestling, whatever you want to call him.
Right.
A man who lied to get different interviews, and a man who had pretty much things handed to him, and he thought he was great. It was people like him. I've worked in this industry for 4 years. I interviewed everyone from Austin. I interviewed everyone to Shawn Michaels, Classy Freddie Blassie, McFoley, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Sorry to continue to repeat this, but I've worked with national newspapers to work with World Wrestling Entertainment. I've worked with Wrestling Magazine. I had an internet live radio syndicated program worldwide with people coming in from different countries to listen to my program. So, I agree with the fact that everything will be the way it should be. Right. And I just agree of the fact that people like Chris Chisholm are not what the wrestling business is about.
Boom, you said it.
He was at this thing in Phoenix, which was this religious baptizing thing.
Which, by the way, I wish I would have known about because it was about 5 minutes away from my house.
Yeah, it's like 5 minutes away from James's house in Arizona. And Sid wants him to do all these stories, and he's on the stage while these guys are getting baptized or whatever. And that's what Sid was saying, or being saved, or whatever you want to call it. And he wasn't interviewing these guys to talk about the different faiths and things like that. And Sid goes over to him and is like, listen, kid, I want you to do these things. You're not doing what's right for these media guys. You're not interviewing these wrestlers to get their stories. And
what was he doing instead?
and instead he was just doing what he wants to do. He wasn't, he was...
Remember that match you had at WrestleMania 6? Things like that, or what was it?
It was just kind of stuff like that for the most part. It just seemed like he wasn't doing what was right for a media journalist. It was like more or less he wasn't doing a media job that night.
He was being unprofessional then?
For the most part, from what Sid said.
Mm-hmm.
So, Sid says that to the kid, and then the kid goes running down the hallway at him. Oh, don't say that about me, Sid. What are you saying? What are you saying? Like a crybaby kind of shit. So anyways, if you tick off Sid Vicious, come on. I'm not that stupid. I'm not going to tick off Sid Vicious. But for the fact is that, his just unprofessionalism. He finds it funny to call people and rib them. He just thinks it's so freaking hilarious to put that on it. I don't think that's professionalism in the world of professional wrestling. Okay, boys will be boys. But I think Chris Chisholm thinks he's more important than he really is.
Well, and that's...
And the fact is that as a wrestling journalist, yeah, you can interview famous wrestlers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but I made contacts and resumes and learning experience to move, to the fact where I just wanted to be one of those people who worked hard, always worked hard, and never had to bash, criticize, or say something about somebody unless I thought I didn't like them for a reason that they didn't do things the right way.
And we get blasted, and I think you've kept up on our show pretty well over the past. It's almost been 2 years, and you've seen that we usually don't take shots at people, and the only person that people can point at that I've ever taken shots at was Kid Cash, and I got called on it. And to be honest with you, I kind of have backed off on that. Still don't like him. Still really dislike him, but I backed off on it.
Well, it was just one professional wrestler, and you're not going to get along with every person in the world, and surely you're not going to get along with every person in the world in the political world that is sports or professional wrestling. It's just how the business is.
Right.
Any business is. But for the most part, I just thought it was time to get out because of people like Chris Chisholm and people that are drug addicts and high school dropouts, not Chris Chisholm, other people, and just other people who think they're big shit because they can steal news from another website. And these other websites that are all the same, with pop-ups coming up, and viruses on my computer, I don't, or had viruses on my computer, and then you have to get AdWire to remove them.
Right.
It's all the same repetitive BS, and none of them are credible journalists. None of them have ever worked for a newspaper. A lot of them just write, columns. And if they want to write columns, then there are some nice guys out there that just do it for fun, and that's fine and dandy. But as far as the wrestling business goes, there's not much fame for a media journalist in the wrestling business unless you're a Dave Meltzer, unless you're a Dave Scherer, or unless you're writing books that are Ricky Steamboats and Bonnie Steamboats like James Walsh's, or you're a wrestling promoter putting on shows and entertainment and DVDs like Daniel Edler over in the UK, who's breaking even after his first show. And if you break even, I consider you a pretty successful wrestling promoter overall. So I just think right now at this point in time, as we look at the wrestling business, there isn't much fame for a wrestling media journalist. And I, was blasted by another radio program who I won't even mention that's highly well known, that's online radio, and they are syndicated to the internet, and they've been around for pretty much a while. But they make fun of people, and then they're like, oh, what was that kid we used to make fun of that was on OneWrestling.com, Chris Yannick, does he have a show? I found that just to be so unprofessional, because I just felt that things were not for the right reason, in the fact of the notoriety that I realized, I never made fun of this show, so why are they making fun of me?
And just so people know,
it just shows the immaturity, and it just shows the unprofessionalism that is the wrestling business overall. And I had fun for my 4 years. I will admit.
And absolutely. Where can people hear some of your interviews, by the way?
Yeah.
Where can they hear them?
Where they can hear my past work?
Yes.
NewEraWrestling.com. I'm hoping to get a new website. I'm in the middle of one. A fan of mine is making a new website for me. NEWERA of Wrestling.com. It's still up. It's old. I haven't updated it in months, but there are interviews with Steve Austin. Freddie Blassie's the last interview before he passed away. Mick Foley's interviews 5 Jake Roberts conversations, and so much more. Trish Stratus, my lovely lady over there. All the other girls and all the.
And she's gotten a lot. She's improved tremendously over the past couple of years.
Yeah, I agree, and she's done a very good job in the ring. And she's one of the few people who's very intelligent, very humble, very funny, very entertaining, and she's had an overall appeal book where I feel she could be just doing so much more with her career than the world of professional wrestling. Honestly, I think that she has so many more talents. She could go off and do movies or do other things like that, and she would do well. I think, anyways, as a person in general, I don't think that she is. I think she's too classy to be in the wrestling business, honestly, and that's just me. But I know she loves it, and I just agree with the fact that, that everything is going to be the way it is for someone like her. But I wish her all the best, because there's not a more intelligent, beautiful, caring, understanding, loving, sports, overall fun girl that makes you smile other than Trish Stratus, who I care about very much, and I still keep in contact every few months from time to time. But for the most part, it was people like her that always made you, interested in the wrestling business, and I know that you had the same connection with Bonnie Steamboat for sure.
Right.
Was your generation's woman, and Trish Stratus was my generation's woman. Sure wasn't, say, like, hey, Raina Miro. So, it was just interviews and conversations like that as I was growing up through my teenage years, and still I am, that brought me to a successful journalist to do the research and promote the product, and I had a very good relationship with World Wrestling Entertainment for many years. But there has been political backfire over time, but I did very good with my newspaper credentials that I had with the Herald and the St. Pete Times.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to be a successful journalist, it's very hard to stand out, because you've got to do a bunch of stories. One interview isn't going to make your career in the world of professional wrestling.
Absolutely, and you have to build up over time. And like you said, there's some shows that still do the same 5 people, and ultimately, we were a part of that. And I think sometimes blessings come in hardship. I think sometimes when you lose contact with a certain company, which I won't mention the name of, but I will get into that in just a second, as I will tie this in. When you lose that contact and you stop getting the smaller guests, you're forced to go out there on your own and reach out to try to grab a Sting or Ric Flair, a Ricky Steamboat, somebody of that stature. And ultimately, that's what we've done. And we might not put as many up as we used to, but when we put them up, they matter more.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I think that you guys do a very good job with the interviews that you have done, and you've interviewed everybody except the Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan that isn't in World Wrestling Entertainment at this point in time. You guys have covered everything you possibly can. You've done a lot of interviews that I've done with people, but I didn't get to interview Sting. That was probably the most complete interview I've ever heard with Sting. Sting's done his share of media, but I think it was the most complete interview that I ever heard with Sting overall.
Absolutely. Well, we just mentioned a company that we were sort of forcefully booted out of, and I won't mention the name, but obviously he also runs OneWrestling.com, which you have since stopped working with. Most people know your name from OneWrestling.com, I think.
Yeah.
So, I mean, most wrestling fans anyway. So what happened that made you decide to leave OneWrestling.com?
Well, the fact that Dave... Well, here's the story from a source. And this is only my opinion going into this whole fact. And anyone who's a OneWrestling.com or Dave Scherer fan will probably want to hear the story. I love Dave Scherer to death as a friend. I love his reporting. He's got sources, real wrestlers he talks to. I know it for a fact. I've seen it and I've heard it. And Dave Scherer knows what he's talking about. He's not stupid. He's not a makeup journalist. He really does report the stuff for the reality that it is. So anyhow, the rumor was from a source close on OneWrestling.com that Dave Scherer, they wanted him, Bob Ryder and Joey Styles wanted Dave Scherer to take a pay cut. And to me, that's a total disgrace to Dave Scherer and the hard work that he puts in every single day on the internet, besides when he's away on vacation, and the fact that Buck Woodward, Jess McGrath, and Mike Johnson were all his buddies, and they are the Four Horsemen. They all worked in ECW. They all have worked in the business. Mike Johnson did things on the DVDs for ECW. Jess McGrath has always been probably the best national reporter for the independent wrestling scene. And I just agree with the fact that anything is possible for those guys. Buck Woodward has done his professional wrestling announcing for Japanese hardcore wrestling. Mm-hmm. And Dave Scherer, of course, has been the home base wrestling journalist, and he's written a few books as well, I think, way back in the day. But I think just for the most part, you look at how things have gone, and those guys are the success of the wrestling journalist internet world. It isn't a newsletter that's not a Dave Meltzer or a Wade Keller, whether I agree with them or not. But, for the most part, they left and they formed their website, pwinsider.com. So there I was, the last member left on the OneWrestling.com premium section. And I say to Bob Ryder, look, I'll stay and I'll try to keep the site going for those loyal subscribers that love my work. I brought interviews with everyone from Steve Austin to Shawn Michaels to your website. Buck Woodward didn't do that. Dave Scherer didn't do that. Mike Johnson didn't do that. And Jess McGrath didn't do that in the time that I was there. I know that Dave sure did interview Steve Austin once, but I'm saying for the most part, you know, I brought WWE interviews to that website, and I used them because through my newspaper credentials, I would just post them there too. And they loved all the exclusives that I gave, and I always sent the audio proof along. That's how legally One Wrestling was at that time. But for the most part, you know, when I went with that, I just said to myself, look, Bob, if you want me to stay for a small sum, not a big sum, it wasn't a big offer. I wasn't asking for like $50,000 a year here. I said, I'll stay.
Well,
and,
can I ask, what was the ballpark of what you were asking for?
It was a very small amount that would just be an extra incentive to me to just have extra money to put in my bank account because I like to save my money. Let's just put it that way. I got money, but, you know, I like to make extra money. And
as we all do.
So I said, I'll stay, and I'll write some things for you, and I'll continue to bring interviews to your website because you need some good journalists. And Bob Ryder's attitude was like, don't let your ass get hit on the door on the way out, pretty much. And I think that Bob Ryder was just a very cruel, negative person that if you criticize him, he just freaking can't take it, honestly. You know, there's so many people that I've known, and this is just my opinion from what I've been told, that have been around Bob Ryder, and they say, oh, he's so gay, he's so sensitive, you know, he's a very nice guy, but you can just tell that sometimes that if you don't like him or you go off or you say something he doesn't like, he just gets so sensitive and secure. Like, why do you say that? Why do you say that? You know, I just think for the fact, you know, this is that, you know, Bob Ryder can be who he wants, and if he wants to be that way, so be it. That's his life. You know, I don't have anything against anyone and any choices and freedom they make, whether I agree with them or not. I just think that Bob Ryder, for the most part, you know, I'm not bitter, because it was probably the best thing that he did say no, because I was able to be reborn and work in a sports and entertainment world where it meant a lot. And the fact that, you know, I was able to expand my horizons, be reborn, and repay my dues again in another field, but get to interview famous NFL players like Emmitt Smith, who's out in the world of the Arizona Cardinals, you know, head coaches and people who are making...
So, by the way, we were talking during the game yesterday, we were talking, and I thought the Cardinals had their second game of the season won, and unfortunately that didn't happen.
They lost in overtime. It's all right.
Great, yeah. So we're building these people a new stadium. Here's an idea. Get a team that doesn't stink, and then build a new stadium. This way people will actually show up to see them, you know? I mean...
Yeah, well, I think that they have tried very hard bringing Emmitt Smith and thinking that it would draw some extra season ticket holders, but no NFL franchise actually loses money, if you can actually believe that, thanks to sponsorships and everything else.
Right.
So the Arizona Cardinals are still making money.
Yep.
And, you know, I just feel for the most part, as we realize the way the wrestling business is that there's just not a lot of good things anymore within the wrestling media business.
Well, you could say that, but I just wanted to jump this real quick. You said Kid Cash had done a shoot interview a few months ago.
Yeah.
And mentioned something about what you were just talking about with Mr. Ryder, who I want to, if he hears this, I want Bob to know I still like you, still respect you. I've never said a bad word about you, and for whatever reason we have heat, I apologize. But that said, you go ahead.
Let me put it this way. All I'm going to say is that when Kid Cash said the fact that people on the TNA board where wrestlers were giving sexual favors for pushes, I kind of thought to myself in my head about something, and I can't prove it, and I don't have dignified evidence, but my opinion just thought of one person, and you know who that is, obviously. And I said to myself, I wonder. I've just heard so many stories about him and other people, if you know what I mean. But that's just from what people have told me. That's just what I know. And, you know, that's it. You know, and the truth is that if you want to prove me wrong, prove me wrong. But,
well, the only thing I could say is, and, you know, Bob, I've always had respect for him. I always thought he was just classy, but there was incidents where WCW Live was doing goofy things towards the end because they just simply had nothing else to do because the show wasn't worth talking about. And they had something called Thong Thursday with Spice and Paisley, who's now, what?
Sharmell Sullivan, who was my first ever interview, Paisley, back on October 27th of 1999, actually. And that will be 5 years in the wrestling business, the wrestling media world, in a few weeks.
Wow.
It's been 1 year in the NFL media world since September 11th. So it's my first interview Go figure. It was a kicker, actually. It wasn't anything important. But just to interview people who are making millions and millions of dollars a year, just like the wrestling business, and be around people who really care about what they're doing and know that, that they're one step away from being caught in a team and they know they have to continue to improve. That's just what I love being around. And I've always been a football fan before I was a professional wrestling fan, and a sports journalist fan before I was a wrestling fan.
Well, all I was trying to say about the WCW Live was, they had Jeremy Borash was in the hot tub with Spice and Paisley in thongs, and Bob Ryder was somehow not in the room. I mean, I don't care if you're classy or not. Hell, I'm in that hot tub,
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying for the most part.
We both talked about our virtues and how we don't believe in and all that things, but you know what?
Yeah, I agree with the fact that, love is love, and when your time is ready, your time is ready. But I'm not just going to have frivolous sex. Getting personal there, but that's just me. I'm 19 now. I've worked very hard since the age of 14. I think Daniel Edler's done a wonderful job, for those small websites that are less credible to his talents, and he posts on them, good for him, but I just think, when you guys ended up saying, oh yeah, this other radio program takes away your ProWrestling.com sponsor or partnership, I said to Daniel right away, if they are going to take away a successful radio program that has interviewed Sting and Ric Flair and others, and has credentials like I did when I really cared and was really involved in the wrestling business, I said, they're not worth your time.
Right.
I said it's as simple as that. I didn't think it was worth that. But the fact is that, a website like ProWrestling.com might be statistically the #1 wrestling website.
And that's just because they have a good domain name.
Exactly. But it doesn't mean they have credible wrestling journalists who have worked in the business like PWInsider.com.
Right.
It's as simple as that.
And the thing is, though, and the new sponsors, they're never mentioned about the new sponsors, and, we went out of our way to throw their name in there during the interviews, have little commercials during interviews to make sure we promoted them, and bottom line is, you know what, if they want to do that, and if there wants to be a bottom feeder out there that wants to try to copy what we've done and try to create his own stardom, well, that's fine. But like you said, we are going to stay where we are. We're happy with what we're doing. We're going to try to get bigger. I want to eventually start branching out and maybe going into music and other ventures. And
yeah, well, for your sake, James, you have worked at a women's sports magazine, so you know how competitive it can be. You wrote a few articles, and you did very well when you were running to that. So you have expanded out very much like me.
And if anybody wants to look it up on the internet, it might be on Google somewhere. I don't know. I haven't looked. It's called Satin and Steel, the story of Stephanie Finocchio, who is now at Trinity in TNA, though she's not on TV anymore. And I wonder why that is.
And from what I agree with, the fact is that, getting back to what's important, Edler has... I would have never thought Daniel Edler would have been a wrestling promoter. I just never... It boggles my mind. It's just so funny. If he wants to stay in the wrestling business and go from just interviewing guys to running shows, and good for him, and I hope he continues to break even and do well on an international basis, And for the most part, there are only about 5 to 10, 15 friends that I can actually consider best friends, and people I can have normal conversations with.
Wow, that was loud.
I think there are a lot of immature people, uneducated people who just rely on their talents in life and don't try to do anything else. I'm a college student. I'm going to get my mass communications and journalism degree.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to sit around and wait for World Wrestling Entertainment to pick up the phone and call me, because it just ain't happening, and I probably would turn that job down if World Wrestling Entertainment called me, because I don't want to live in a lifestyle of Pat Pattersons and things like that. Right. You know what I mean? It just isn't worth the time, and and
that's the thing that I got into a conversation with a friend of mine. We were over coffee a couple of months ago. We were sitting down, and she's like, well, what do you want to do with your life? And, the bottom line is, up until recently, everything I've wanted to do has had to do with wrestling. But then I started thinking the lifestyle of living on the road and chasing skirts and all that stuff, and that's just not me. I'd rather just have one woman, be at home, have fun. Even, I'll work from home. I'll write my articles from home, and I'll take care of the kids.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just very different. Have you ever seen the show Dave's World with Harry Anderson? That's pretty much the lifestyle.
I know what you're saying. There's nothing wrong with being a stay-at-home dad. There's nothing wrong with that.
I mean, I work, but still,
Yeah, I'm saying you're going to work, but you're going to stay home. And,
right.
I think that
Of course, usually it actually helps to find a woman to be a stay-at-home dad. But
yeah, for the most part, there's nothing wrong with that, either way.
right.
And I think for the most part, with the reality of looking at the world of professional, everything. I had the impact at 16 years old, thinking my whole life was going to be around professional wrestling, and it changed within 2.5 years, where I'm doing something more worthwhile, and I feel reborn. And there's so many more opportunities for exclusive stories. And it's not like 50 people in the world are interviewing the exclusive stories in the internet radio program without the Ultimate Warrior, which people would have thought, wow, an internet radio program getting the Ultimate Warrior 3 years ago would have been freaking unheard of. But it's not impossible today. In 1 year, everybody will have their own Hulk Hogan interview, and it won't mean anything.
Oh, where the hell is the Warrior anyway? He's somewhere out here in Arizona.
He's out I thought he was out in California the last time I heard. California, Arizona, whatever. I really don't know.
Yeah, well, I just saw in the news they just opened up a new wrestling school here in Arizona. Now, that's where the Warrior, it's almost identical, it's like within a mile of where the Ultimate Warrior's original Warrior University was.
Yeah, ultimatewarrior.com or whatever it is, and, whatever it is, the ultimatewarrior.com, go on there, email that thing, and maybe you can ask them yourself for a reason. Maybe you'll get a reply if you've ever tried. You can actually probably email and try to get an interview, James. You never know. It might happen. But for the most part, you guys will be fine. And I just love where my career has gone and how well I've done. And I'm working on a book myself and representing Hawk Yonkins, who's out in Hollywood, who was on Tough Enough too. But he's done television shows. He had a stunt role in Mr. and Mrs. Smith, a big blockbuster movie with Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt.
Mm-hmm.
And he's doing well out in Hollywood, and he's going to be on a show very soon, too. Hawkamania.com, Hawka.
That's the strongest power in the universe.
Mania.com, Hawkamania.com, and he was supposed to have a spot. He almost got a spot in an X-Men movie. It was between him and someone else, and someone called him on the phone, right? And he thought it was a joke, so he hung up, and they called back. They said, if you hang up on us again, we're not calling you back. But it was between him and another guy, and he got that role acting opportunity because of Tough Enough too. If you could even believe that. They wanted him to be one of the people in the X-Men movie, and it was between him and another guy, and the other guy got it. But he's got...
Who was the other guy, if you don't mind me asking?
I have no idea. It was just some bigger stunt guy, I think, for the most part. I don't know. But, so that's what happened. And, Hawk Yonkins is when he contacted me, and we like, I want you to be my PR, blah, blah, blah. So I said, I'll represent this guy, and he does wrestling bookings from time to time. If there are any interested indie promoters out there, Hawkamania.com for more information. And, for the most part, we'll just see what it continues to happen as we move down the road.
How does Marvel Comics feel about your website address?
Marvel Comics, the whole situation, we have not been called for being sued yet. And we are a small independent website, so I don't think we'll be getting sued.
It's just intrigues me very much that Hogan still has to pay Marvel Comics because he called himself the Incredible Hulk Hogan in 1983. I mean, he hasn't called himself that in 20-something years.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
But, Hogan is Hogan, and Hogan's got a lot of money. He's promoting his daughter right now, but... that's Hogan and that's life. Now, getting to what I think will change the wrestling media business overall, if there's competition. And if Ted Turner does get control of Time Warner, we will have another company. We will have more to talk about than just TNA once a month. And that whole pay-per-view concept did not work. And people like Bob Ryder thought it would, and it didn't. So,
But the bottom line is now I think they're in worse footing without the pay-per-view than they would have been with it, because now they're only putting on one show, and it's not of the same stature because it seems more like an infomercial. And, I love TNA. I've been a fan since the beginning, but the bottom line is anybody that looks at this as branching out is looking at it very optimistically, because I look at it as condensing.
Well, they've got some national television, they've got some opportunities, and we'll see what happens. And they'll go from there. But if Ted Turner does get control, we've got WCW all over again.
Well, what do you think of...
TBS and national television, let me finish, and they can get a media coverage, and you've got Sting, Hogan, Goldberg, Diamond Dallas Page, others, and new stars from Ring of Honor and, and the Ring of Honor and those Northeastern Independents in Japan, and you can bring some people from WWE are definitely going to jump shift because they're going to want more money because those guys who are making $80,000 a year are going to want more money. It's just as simple as that.
Absolutely, and
I think for the most part it would help the media business to have a competition because there'd be more stories to do then and more worthwhile things to talk about then.
True, and they gotta form a way to get younger talent involved? Because you just mentioned 3 guys there that'll be over 50 at that point. But DDP, Hogan, and Sting will be probably 47 or 48. I mean, you gotta do things with guys that's new and hasn't been done yet.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, what were we talking about a second ago when I almost interrupted you?
The fact is that, if Turner's promotion does go through, we'll have more media stories to talk about.
Absolutely, but you got
wrestling, and then the wrestling media business will get stronger again. And, PWInsider.com is your best source for your wrestling news on the internet today.
Absolutely.
And I contribute stories there from time to time. So it was the best thing ever, though, leaving OneWrestling.com and Bob Ryder saying, get out, go away, and I was reborn, and I was able to do new things. The only thing I could ever see myself doing, honestly, is doing some video shoot interview with somebody. If someone wants to call me and offer me a pretty decent, good amount of money, and they know how to reach me if they want to. And www.thesportsinterview.com is where all my NFL media, if you can listen and read and give me some feedback on that.
Absolutely.
For those wrestling fans, as we continue this conversation this evening, go ahead, James, whatever else you want to talk about.
All right. Wow, that was fast talking right there.
Yeah.
Okay. How the hell does a porn star get a television deal on a Christian network?
Jasmine St. Clair I've known for a very long time, and I think it's the nicest person in the world, even if I don't agree with her moralistic tactics. I think it's because of PAC's TV show. Network is low-rate cable. They've got reality television where $1,000 is the funding for each probably production. So they probably want something that's going to sell some good advertising, and wrestling still does draw ratings. And look at the ratings that TNA has been getting on the Fox Sports Net. They've been doing pretty good with.
How have they been doing?
So they supposedly are just doing well enough. That the ratings are well enough because, if they weren't, Fox Sports Net wouldn't be continuing to carry them. Let's just put it that way.
Well, let me put it this way, though. Well, what do they have on before then? Darts?
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying,
Darts and bowling and Jesus Christ. I mean,
beach volleyball.
Oh yeah, all those are just big ratings draws.
During the Olympics, maybe. But for the most part, that's what happened, and I think they're doing pretty well with their ratings as far as what I've been told. I don't know what the ratings are, honestly, James, but that's just what I hear. I haven't watched Raw in 3 weeks. Just give me a break here. But for the most part, I think that wrestling is good on any network and draws ratings, and it's, entertainment, and people like that. So they think, let's put this low-rate wrestling program and let's put a television show, and hopefully this entertainment of some sort will bring us some ratings. Because who watches PAX TV? I sure don't.
I think the only thing I ever watch on there is the show I mentioned earlier, Dave's World with Harry Anderson. I'm not even sure if it's still on the lineup. So, I've watched it a couple times, and, that's the only thing. Whenever I see it on, I watch that. But other than that, it always seems to be like Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, and all that annoying stuff that I hated in the 90s and I still hate today. So.
Yeah, and I agree with you, honestly. And that's just the way things are in the world today. But I'm saying a low rate. That PAX TV is not your #1 cable network, so a show like that would probably take wrestling. But how do they know Jasmine St. Clair's a porn star? Maybe they don't even know that. You know what I'm saying? Maybe they're too religious because they don't follow that world to know that she is a porn star.
Well, and I wish her luck. We've had our differences, but I wish her luck. I mean, anytime there's a...
She's tried. And I want to, realize that, Jasmine St. Clair is a porn star. She works in the wrestling business, and she's very nice, and I consider her a friend. But I don't believe in those moralistic values for the most part. And, I think that she's a very caring, loving person. Honestly, from what I know. I don't know how you can define loving, though. Maybe loving in,
well, if you can give me your number, I'll show you. But we've already had her on the show, so never mind. Okay.
You sick dog, James.
Well,
James is a moralistic guy. We're just messing around here.
You know me. I've only been with one girl my entire life, and she was my fiancée. So.
Getting back to the listeners, how do I say this? If you want to make it in the wrestling business in the media world, it's just very hard, and there's just not a lot of fame in it. And I lived the dream, I lived the life, and I loved it very much. And I'm writing a book with all my interviews and experiences of how it all came to be. And maybe, hopefully, in a few years, I'll get that done. I've got about 50 pages done of it right now, and about maybe 8 chapters. But for the most part, find me on the World Wide Web at www.thesportsinterview.com and www.newarabwrestling.com for all my wrestling media stories. And I'll do an interview from time to time when you hear me. But I just think, for the most part, Dave Meltzer, Dave Scherer, they've done a wonderful job. And I've worked with both of those guys, and I know what the political aspects and legal aspects. People tried to bury my career. People tried to destroy my career, and a lot of them did, and a lot of them failed. And I was still around, and I did very well of what the opportunity was. And Daniel Edward was there to see me have to deal with legal matters with other people accusing me of things that weren't true.
Is that the whole Sean Stasiak thing?
Yes.
Mm.
And I know the truth of that story. I know that I talked to an imposter. And Sean Stasiak, the real Sean Stasiak, knows he talked to an imposter.
Mm.
And I could probably get him on the show for you guys to explain the whole situation.
The real Sean Stasiak?
Yes, the real Sean Stasiak.
Oh, good. I'd love to have him on.
And, you know, the fake one was really good. And the real one, you know, this is the story.
Well, let me ask you this question. Who's lowly enough to actually want to impersonate Sean Stasiak?
Wrestling fans have no life.
Okay.
A lot of them don't. I think the funniest line, I think the funniest line is when Mick Foley says in this DVD, "You're probably watching this because you probably don't have a girlfriend," when he did his DVD series. And I thought to myself, I'm not saying all wrestling fans are like that, but I'm saying a lot of them are not the most socially climaxed people, not the most successful people, and not the most moralistic people in the world. So, that's just how it is. And a lot of them have depressions and feel wrestling is life and wrestling is everything, and it just isn't. Once you live that dream, you realize it just isn't. And there's more to life and fame and the media world and entertainment. And just for the aspect of life, I, as a person, am happy with the way everything turned out, and I'm glad I'm in the sports and NFL media world, and I know that there'll be shows like the Interactive Interview that continue to have the professionalism that a lot of other wrestling radio programs do not, besides.
And as we said, we'll follow in your lead and try to offer the professionalism and earn the respect the right way without having to bottom feed and steal other people's sponsorships or follow people around on stage and living across the country and act like a jackass or send stupid messages on AIM at 3 o'clock in the morning trying to act like somebody else to try to make me slip up and say something I'm going to regret. The bottom line is I've played those games and you're not going to beat me at them. I'm not a stupid game player. I'm too mature. I'm too adult for that shit. I'm 23 years old now. I'm going to college. I got a college degree already. I'm going to further my education. I'm going to
only get you more money.
Absolutely. Hell, before I'm done, I'm going to be Dr. Walsh, for Christ's sake. So.
Yeah. And I'm very happy and proud of you, James, because many wrestling people do not like to further their education. And I said this to somebody who always wanted to be a writer in the wrestling business, who's worked very hard, a close friend of mine. And I said to him, the fact, Nixon Aguirre is his name, I said, listen to you. You're going to have a degree, and you're going to go teach kids from broken homes, and you're going to go to high school, and you're going to motivate kids, being an English teacher or whatever you want to be in life. That's more important than being a writer in the wrestling business around people that don't know what a college degree is.
Right.
So, there's a few of them that have college degrees and do well, but a lot of them don't because they're all carnies, and wrestling business was their life. And it's okay to get out there in your life and be talented and do well and make millions of dollars. But I think at the end of the day, as an entertainer, you need to push your education. You need to push that because talent can't always get you everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Got to work hard.
Workmanship, work experience, and education get you those places.
And absolutely, and look at Diamond Dallas Page. Look at Diamond Dallas Page. I mean, the guy didn't have all the talent in the world, but he worked his ass off to get where he got.
Yeah, and then he does motivational speaking.
Right.
And that's a career, and he's done some acting too. It wasn't the greatest acting, but he did some acting.
Right.
He does motivational speaking. He goes to freaking Harvard University and gives motivational speaking on positiveness. Come on. Those are like expanding out adventures,
right?
Which are where you should be as far as those situations go. And that's what I think.
Absolutely.
Looking at everything right now within the wrestling media business in the world. And I think shows like Wrestle Talk Radio try very hard, and they do well. They're not the greatest radio program in the world. They're no interactive interview, but I think Wrestling Observer Live, I think One Wrestling Radio, of course, on the premium, not One Wrestling Radio, Elite Radio, OneWrestling.com sucks today. It's not what it once was, obviously. Is a great radio program if you want to subscribe to that premium section, Elite Radio, and those great shows have done well. And of course, you've got Wrestling Observer Live, Live Audio Wrestling, and these guys. And that's it. Those are the only shows I recommend you listening to, but that's just me. But I listen to the other shows just to see what they're all about.
And I have done so.
I do keep up with the wrestling business daily. But
you know, the bottom line is sometimes I just listen in to hear what they're saying about me now.
Yeah, and I agree. But, you know, I don't even care what people think on it.
You know, one person, and I don't remember what show this was, I honestly do not, but I remember I went on the show one day and I was reading that James Walsh has signed a deal to be a WWE road agent.
Wow.
And I was just like, wow, I did. I didn't know that. That's news to me. That's like Bush at the thing. I own a lumber company, want some wood? You know, it's not true. That's great, you know?
I know.
Just keep making stuff up. What people, I mean, Gene Simmons from KISS said it. What you say about me is a lot better than what I can tell you about me. So. Yeah,
I agree, for the most part. But I've done very well. www.newyorkwrestling.com, working on a book representing Hawk Young until be on the show, the interactive interview rules, you know, all those wonderful good things. And you guys have done wonderful professionalism, and I'm very impressed. And if anyone has any questions, lyandek@AOL.com, lyandek@AOL.com. If you have any questions or you want to learn stuff about the wrestling business, I'm always willing to help, and I just want everyone to know, you know, that it just isn't what it once was. And if you love doing this as a hobby, so be it. But there's no career at the end of the line.
Right. Well, we can't thank you enough for coming on, and we'll be in contact. I'll be talking to you on LYANDEK@AOL.com.
Or L Yannick on AIM. You can chat with me. I always keep my messages open. No problem.